Mike's Daily Podcast.
Episode 1353-1353. Hi, I'm Mike Matthews, broadcasting from Cafe Anyway, located somewhere in Podcastro Valley, Mont. Today, John Deere... No, he's not going to be here. Benita, the Disgruntled fiddle player, the Brewmaster. If you want John Deere, he was in the last show. I did a show yesterday, but late in the day, so you may have missed it. We're broadcasting from Podcastro Valley, Mont.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Yesterday, we were in Podcastro Valley 10. And today, we will have the wonderful segment...
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Let's see. I think we'll have a segment about bots and drones with all these mechanical things. Why are we all still alone? Because we don't talk to each other and we'd rather be texting away to someone in our family who we don't like. Note to self. That's what we'll do today. Note to self. You know what?
Mike's Daily Podcast.
I had a interesting dream last night that had to do with a coworker, and I think I'll stop there
Mike's
with my description.
Daily
But it was rather interesting.
Podcast.
Do you get those dreams?
Yeah.
About coworkers? It was steamy. But I was talking on the last show. I think we talked about Terry Gross. And no, I've had no dreams with Terry Gross. But she did this wonderful interview with Dion. And Dion, the way he was able to just, I don't know how old he was back in 2000 when this interview took place. Look who just walked in. Just grabbed that guitar and he could just sing anything. Like, he was describing how he was influenced by Hank Williams Sr. and he starts singing a Hank Williams Sr. song and was talking about Hank dropping off words in his songs. I hear the train come. I guess that's what he was mentioning. Look who walked in. Hi, Mac. It's Benita the Rodeo Queen. How y'all doing?
It's a disgruntled fiddle player, tell you what.
What?
Don't ever disrespect Hank.
No, I was talking about how he dropped words.
He didn't drop anything. He was the best ever was.
Oh. Someone else walked in.
Hello, Mike. I make the delicious root beer. I'm the brewmaster of my house of repair.
Thank you. You know, people ask me, why do we just only serve root beer here? Why don't we serve beer? You talk about beer sometimes. Why not then you like beer? The fact of the matter is, my friend, I come from the old school of radio podcasting.
And here's today's podcast picture.
It's of you, Benita. Thanks, Mike. I love being rendered as a drawing in your cartoons. But I gotta go, bye, I'm shy. She doesn't say much on the show anymore, does she? Yeah, back in the old days, well, actually, it's still an FCC rule, supposedly. You cannot drink beer live on the air. And since I am from radio and I got my start in radio back in 1986, I have this belief system. So, I no beer, but root beer. Does that explain it?
Mark, that's a lame excuse.
It is an excuse nonetheless. And I know some people that all they live by are excuses. Chain smokers, they're getting rather popular, aren't they? No, not the people that can't put down the cigs. I'm talking about the band. That Halsey, so baby, would you folder with that something back in Boulder? Do. And then now there's that Coldplay song getting played constantly. I want something just like this. Din, 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 din. I think they're not a one-trick pony. They might just be a two-trick pony. We'll see if they come out with, if they decide to. But it is nice to hear Coldplay back on the radio again. They were having a difficult time getting their new songs played. But this is not one of their songs. It's a collab. But maybe you're sick of Coldplay. Certainly that Clock song. Then clocks go out and I cannot say a baby blue. My mama's named Ray. Well, I was also talking about the last show about newlyweds. And when you're young and you get married is what I'm saying. And the world is at your feet. You're so young, and then you get married. You're young and you're beautiful, and you could date anyone you want, but you love this person, and you get married. And everybody at the wedding is like, oh, that person could have been dating so many other people, but no, they decided to get married. Isn't that what love is about? But, bam, they're divorced in 5 years because of all the reasons I gave last show. I know that is not a rosy picture of marriage, but it happens a lot. And our vision of what beauty is, as I was discussing last show, is skewed, is not what it should be. And someone posted on Facebook today, someone who I think she's rather lovely. She's someone around my age, and she posted the following. She said, you know what? Beauty, if you have a sense of humor, you're already 75% more attractive, and beauty fades, but sarcasm, that lasts forever. And that's so true. And did I mention Michael Hutchence? I was trying to get... Now, I'm a little bit confused because I recorded my podcast yesterday 3 times. And I had technical difficulties, and I tell you, the third time I did the podcast was not the charm. It was not the charm at all, but still, it was all I could do. And I don't know if I mentioned Michael Hutchence or not, but he was the lead singer of INXS. He died 20 years ago, not to the date. He died around November, actually near my birthday. So Stephanie Rose and Tammy Myers, who I used to work with at different radio stations, but they worked together at one radio station that I did not work at. But I still keep in touch with them on Facebook. And they met Michael Hutchence while he was still alive, obviously, at an INXS concert. He was the lead singer for INXS at the Santa Barbara Bowl. And they have a picture that they posted on Facebook of Stephanie Rose, Tammy Myers, and Michael Hutchence with his arm around both of them. And Tammy is kind of leaning against Michael Hutchence and has her hand against one of his pecs, to which Stephanie Rose wrote in the comment section under the post, "Hey, Tammy, by the way, how was that pec?" That was the story I was trying to get to last show. Also, I wanted to say a shout out to Stormy Phoenix. Stormy Phoenix and I were discussing someone that she works with at another radio station. And this radio station, now the thing to do if you are in radio, people go, well, if you're a radio station, you don't need to podcast. But actually, if you are in radio and you have a podcast, if you have a radio station connected with it, the podcast automatically gets way more downloads than it would just DIY like I'm doing it. But also on their website, this radio station sends out their young, beautiful intern people with a really nice camera and has them interview unknown musicians, kind of like what I do on this show, but I don't have video. And you're welcome. And this one girl, we were watching, Stormy Phoenix and I were watching this one girl that she works with at this station. And I said to her later, wow, that girl from the radio station was sure cleavaging it up in the interview. To which she said, oh, really? And then later she corrected me and said, no, she wasn't. And you know what? The fact of the matter was, she really wasn't cleavaging it up, but they show the video on their website in such a small screen, such a tiny little square, that you don't know. It kind of looks like it to a guy. We kind of fill in things that we want to see, is what I'm trying to say. We want to see what we want to see. But Stormy Phoenix sends me new music all the time because she knows I do the music going in and out of a talk show. I only play about 60 seconds max of a song, but she sends me new music in the alternative indie rock vein. But lately, all the stuff she's sending me has the exact same synthesizers and exact same beat that's kind of retro, kind of 80s, kind of maybe 70s. And then when I tell her, hey, I played one of your songs, she sends me 20 more. One word for all of it. Disposable. It's all disposable. It's all starting to sound the same to me. But I'm old. But then once in a while, I'm like, hey, I like the way they utilize the synthesizer and drums in that. Chainsmokers, well, I don't know. They're getting overplayed like the Coldplay. Like everything else. But maybe like the In Excess. How many more times do you need to hear I Need You Tonight? Because I'm not sleeping. There's something about you, babe, that makes me sweat. And now I'd like to also say that show that I've been producing, that where I throw the music in for the talk show, I've been doing it now for a year. It's been a year now. And that's sad when you look back on your life and you go, what an accomplishment. I've done this for a whole year. And I've done this podcast now for 6 years. And you know what? Thank you for listening to every single episode. If you haven't and you want to go back and listen to old shows, there's the website, MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST-1353-Charm. You can hear old shows, hear old interviews. You can also help out the show if you're going to buy anything on Amazon. Click on that Amazon link and buy whatever it is you're going to buy, and that helps us out. You can see past podcast pictures. You can also do the PayPal and become an inglorious Mike's Daily Podcaster and get a special personalized MP3 for thee from all the Cafe Anyway characters. Find all that at MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST.com. And now the segment that we call...
Note to self.
The only thing hotter than Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is his lovely wife, Stephanie Gregoire Trudeau. She's very pretty. She kind of reminds me of a very young Diane Lane. Diane Lane is the one who plays Superman's mom in the latest Superman series. And she is lovely. But Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has a request for Pope Francis say sorry for the role of the Catholic Church in a Canadian school system where the Indigenous children were abused. Justin Trudeau met the pontiff at the Vatican yesterday as part of his trip to Italy for the G7 summit. The residential schools were set up from the 1880s to take children from their families and assimilate them into mainstream Canadian society. The last one closed in 1996. Canada's Truth and Reconciliation Commission has called for a papal apology as part of the healing process for survivors. Some 150,000 Aboriginal children were forcibly removed from some of their families and sent to live in church-run boarding schools where they were forbidden to speak the language or practice their own culture. Although details of Mr. Trudeau's private audience have not been made public, the Vatican confirmed the talk was cordial, and it lasted about 36 minutes. And it focused on the themes of integration and reconciliation as well as religious freedom and current ethical issues. But the Vatican did not mention an apology directly. Meanwhile, Panama, the dictator Manuel Noriega, who spied for the U.S. before his drug trafficking and brutality triggered a U.S. invasion to oust him in 1989. Yes, I remember that. It was all over the news back then. It was live. It was happening. Big invasion. Well, he's died at the age of 83. He had not been doing well. It marked the closing of a chapter in the Central American country's history. Noriega, who ruled Panama from 83 to 89, was a longtime collaborator of the CIA and a useful U.S. ally in a region that was prone to leftist insurgencies. The invasion, ordered by George H.W. Bush, brought an end to his career of money laundering and cocaine smuggling, in which he worked with traffickers like Colombian Pablo Escobar. He was initially sentenced in the U.S. in 1992, but was serving a sentence for murder in Panama when he died. He was let out of prison under house arrest in January to have an operation to remove a brain tumor. The surgery went ahead in early March, but he suffered a hemorrhage. Underwent a second operation. He underwent a second one, and he's been in a coma ever since. Meanwhile, Trump, he's got those leaks. In fact, he fired his communications director. Or no, wait, the communications director resigned. And And a day after the firing of FBI Director James Comey met with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak in the Oval Office. 3 of Trump's most trusted advisors were present. And yet, out of that small group, damaging and highly specified details attributed to U.S. government officials spilled onto pages of the Post. Trump had revealed sensitive information to the Russians about an ISIS plot that Israeli officials had asked him to keep secret. That raw data was drafted into... So, basically, I'm not going to read the rest of that. That was The Hill. And The Hill was talking about all the leaks. And that's the big conversation these days, is about Donald Trump's leaks. And maybe that's why the communications director resigned. And they say that now the press briefings might just be held by Donald Trump himself once in a while, and that they'll just be press releases, but not actual press briefings. And so much for Sean Spicer, he will be more behind the scenes. And then finally, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un supervised the test of a new ballistic missile controlled by a precision guidance system and ordered the development of more powerful strategic weapons. The missile launched yesterday was equipped with an advanced automated pre-launch sequence compared with previous versions of the rockets. That indicated the North had launched a modified Scud-class missile. The North's test launch of a short-range ballistic missile landed in the sea off its east coast and was the latest in a fast-paced series of missile tests defying international pressure and threats of more sanctions. Kim said the reclusive state would develop more powerful weapons in multiple phases in accordance with the timetable to defend North Korea against the United States. He expressed the conviction that it would make a greater leap forward in the spirit to send a bigger gift package to the Yankees. They said, Kim Jong-un, in retaliation for American military provocation. South Korea said it had conducted a joint drill with the U.S. supersonic B-1B Lancer bomber yesterday. North Korea's state media earlier accused the United States of staging a drill to practice dropping nuclear bombs on the Korean peninsula. The U.S. Navy said its aircraft carrier strike group, led by the USS Carl Vinson, also planned a drill with another U.S. nuclear carrier, the USS Ronald Reagan, in waters near the Korean peninsula. By the way, go on C-SPAN right now, and I think they just posted... Well, they were showing this yesterday. It was fascinating. It was Ronald Reagan way back in 1967 with Robert Kennedy, and the two of them were not so much debating because, you know, Ronald Reagan, Republican, Robert was a Democrat, and they were talking about Vietnam and kind of defending Vietnam to all these students, international students. And it was all televised on CBS in 1967. What was interesting, too, is it was all connected. It was linked up via satellite because one part of the students were over in England. Ronald Reagan was in California, governor of California at the time. Robert Kennedy was wherever he was in Washington or whatever. And so, Washington, D.C. Fascinating. Watch it. I watched a little bit of it, and it's interesting how both politicians are defending the Vietnam War. But what I also wanted to say was, as we go outside a cafe anyway, is that I thought when Garrison Keillor left the Prairie Home Companion show that it would start to stink. But no, Chris Thile of Nickel Creek, oh my gosh, that guy. So good. They did this little skit where he's at home, he's staying at someone's house, and that person's not there. But the phone rings, he answers the phone, and it's the mother of the actual owner of the place. And so he starts talking to this mom who's from Minnesota, and just the way this actress did the accent was hilarious. And they were talking all about Minnesota and how when you say goodbye in Minnesota, you say, "Bye now. Bye now." Not only that, and then Chris is singing, and he sounds great, and so, what a talent. I feel as if this show is charmed in some way by you listening. Thank you so much for listening. Next show, it's going to be Madame Rootabega, Valentino, and Bison Bentley.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST.com. Email Mike now at MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST@gmail.com. See you tomorrow. Bye!